The forest was silent except for the faint hum of insects. Tall alien trees rose into the misty sky, their roots twisting like giant snakes. A lone human walked carefully among the shadows, his boots pressing softly against the mossy ground. He was a soldier once, now more of a wanderer. His name was Ryan. Ryan's eyes scanned the strange landscape, always alert, always searching. This world was not safe for humans. He knew that, but he had no choice. His ship had crashed weeks ago, and survival meant finding food, water, and shelter in this hostile land. As he moved deeper into the jungle, he felt it again, that strange sensation, the feeling that someone, or something, was watching him. He stopped, holding his breath, listening carefully. The wind whispered through the leaves, and in that whisper, he thought he heard a voice, soft, weak, almost like a child. It was a sound no jungle creature could make. He tightened his grip on the weapon at his side, slowly turning toward the noise. There, half hidden in the thick bushes, he saw movement. At first, he thought it was an animal, but then he froze. A pair of glowing blue eyes stared back at him from the shadows. The eyes were too large, too bright, almost innocent. Ryan stepped closer, and the figure revealed itself. It was not an animal, not a predator, but a tiny alien girl. She looked fragile, barely up to his chest in height, her body thin, her skin pale and smooth. Her long silver hair fell down her back, shining faintly even in the dim light, and her ears, sharp and pointed, marked her as something not human, something otherworldly. The girl trembled, clutching her small arms around herself. Her lips moved, and to Ryan's shock, she spoke. "Don't leave me, human," she whispered in broken words. Ryan's heart pounded. His soldier's training told him to step back, to be cautious. Aliens in this world were not to be trusted, especially ones that seemed too helpless. But something in her voice stopped him. It was not a trick, not a trap. It was fear, pure and desperate fear. Ryan crouched low, keeping his distance but softening his tone. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Why are you here?" The girl's eyes glistened with tears. She shook her head as if she could not answer. Instead, she whispered again, "Please, safe. With you." Ryan's chest tightened. He did not know why. This creature, this tiny alien girl, had no reason to trust him. Yet she had spoken human words, broken but clear. How had she learned them, and why had she chosen him? He looked around quickly, scanning the trees. If she was here, then others might be near. Alien authorities, hunters, soldiers, anyone who wanted her back. The forest suddenly felt even more dangerous. But Ryan could not walk away, not after hearing her plea. Something in her eyes reminded him of the innocent, of the weak, of the people he once swore to protect. Slowly, he extended his hand toward her. She flinched, but did not run. "Come out," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." The girl hesitated, then crawled out of the bushes. Her steps were unsteady, her small body trembling as if she had not eaten in days. Ryan noticed faint scars along her arms, thin lines that looked like marks from restraints. His jaw tightened, anger rising. Who would do this to someone so small, so fragile? The girl stopped, just a step away from him, looking up with wide glowing eyes. "Name?" "Lyra," she whispered at last, her voice soft but steady. Ryan blinked, surprised she could give him her name. "Lyra," he repeated quietly, as if testing the sound. The alien girl nodded faintly, her long hair falling over her face. She seemed exhausted, as if the effort of speaking had drained her strength. Without thinking, Ryan slipped off his outer jacket and wrapped it around her small shoulders. She shivered, then clutched the fabric tightly. For the first time, she looked almost safe, but deep inside, Ryan knew this was only the beginning. Her presence meant trouble, more than he could handle. The authorities of this world would be searching, and he had just made himself their enemy. Still, as he looked into her eyes, he could not walk away. Something about her felt important, as if fate had placed her in his path. he sighed, shaking his head. All right, Lyra, you stay close, understand? She nodded weakly, whispering yes, human. Just then, the silence of the forest broke. A distant hum echoed in the air, mechanical and sharp. Ryan's instincts flared. Patrol drones. They were searching, moving closer, scanning the forest. Lyra's eyes widened in fear, and she clutched his arm, whispering urgently, They come. They come for me. Ryan's pulse quickened, his mind racing. The tiny alien girl he had just promised to protect was already a target. And now, so was he. He pulled her close, looking toward the sky through the trees. Lights flickered in the distance, cutting through the mist. There was no time to think, no time to doubt. Ryan whispered to himself, What have I gotten into? Then he tightened his grip on Lyra's small hand, and they ran deeper into the forest. The chase had already begun. The forest seemed alive with echoes of danger. Mechanical hums drifted in the air, growing louder as patrol drones scanned the ground. Ryan pulled Lyra behind a thick tree, pressing a finger to his lips to signal silence. The alien girl trembled against him, her wide glowing eyes filled with fear. She clutched the jacket he had given her, the fabric far too big for her tiny frame. Ryan felt her shaking, like a frightened child hiding from monsters in the dark. The lights of the drones passed overhead, their beams slicing through the mist. Ryan held his breath, his soldier's instincts keeping him perfectly still. Only when the sounds faded into the distance did he dare to move. He let out a slow breath, glancing at the girl beside him. She was still clinging tightly, her small hands gripping his arm, as if letting go meant death. Ryan softened his voice. They're gone. For now, Lyra nodded faintly, but her fear did not fade. She whispered, They hunt me. Always. Ryan studied her face, the sharp lines of her ears, the pale glow of her eyes. She was not just any alien child, that much was clear. He wondered what she was running from, why she had scars, why she spoke human words. But right now, none of those answers mattered. Survival came first. He tightened the strap of his gear and motioned for her to follow. Come on, we need to move, he said firmly. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Stepping close to him as if afraid to lose his shadow, they walked for hours through the thick forest. Ryan kept his senses sharp, listening for drones or soldiers. Lyra walked silently at his side, her bare feet barely making a sound on the mossy ground. At times, she stumbled, weak from exhaustion, and Ryan had to catch her. She would whisper sorry each time, her voice so small, it broke through his hardened exterior. He was used to war, used to survival, but not used to being needed. Like this, when night finally fell, Ryan found a hidden cave at the base of a cliff. It was narrow, but deep enough to keep them safe from patrols. He gathered dry leaves and started a small fire, careful to keep the smoke low. The flames flickered, casting soft light across the rocky walls. Lyra sat close, her knees pulled to her chest, watching the fire as if it were a strange miracle. Ryan opened one of his ration packs and offered her a piece of dried food. She sniffed it suspiciously, then nibbled carefully. Her face softened with relief when she realized it was edible. Slowly, bite by bite, she ate until the hunger in her eyes began to fade. Ryan leaned back, studying her quietly. Where did you learn to speak human words? He asked at last. Lyra paused, her glowing eyes reflecting the fire. She hesitated, then whispered, I listen, I watch. Long time, her words were broken, but clear enough. Ryan frowned, realizing she must have been near humans before. But where, and why, he could not yet know. She touched the scars on her arms and looked down. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to say more, but no words came. Ryan didn't press. He simply nodded. All right, we'll talk when you're ready, he said gently. For a moment, the cave was silent except for the crackle of the fire. Then, softly, Lyra asked, Why? Help me. Ryan blinked, surprised by the question. He thought about it, about the risk, about the patrols searching for her. Finally, he sighed, because you asked me not to leave you. Her eyes widened at his words, and for the first time, she smiled, faint but real. That small smile did something to him. It reminded him of the people he once protected, the innocent lives caught in war, and it reminded him of his own past. The people he could not save. This time, he would not fail. This time, he would protect her, no matter the cost. Lyra slowly leaned closer, her head resting lightly against his arm. Ryan stiffened at first, but then relaxed, letting her stay. Her breathing grew slower, calmer, until he realized she had fallen asleep. He looked down at her. This fragile alien who had stumbled into his life. She was more than just a responsibility now. She was a bond he hadn't expected. In that quiet cave, surrounded by the unknown, Ryan made a silent promise. He would keep her safe. Even if the whole world was against him. Outside, the forest was alive with distant sounds, the hum of machines, the howl of alien creatures, the rustle of leaves in the night wind. But inside the cave, there was peace. Fragile and temporary, Ryan fed the fire, his eyes drifting back to Lyra. She was small, weak, but there was something hidden in her, something powerful. He had seen the glow when she collapsed earlier. A strange light beneath her skin. She was not ordinary, and that truth made the danger even greater. But Ryan pushed the thought aside, for now. All that mattered was the fragile bond forming between them, a bond built in the shadow of fear, but also in trust. As he closed his eyes, resting for the first time in days, Ryan knew this was only the beginning. Somehow, fate had tied him to this tiny alien girl, and in his heart, he knew their journey would change everything. The fire in the cave had burned low, glowing embers, casting faint light across the stone walls. Ryan sat awake, his back against the cold rock, while Lyra slept curled up beside the fire. Her small hands clutched his jacket tightly, as if afraid it might vanish if she let go. 4 hours. He watched her, thinking about what had happened. Why was she here, alone, and hunted? And why did she know human words? When the first pale light of dawn touched the mouth of the cave, Lyra stirred. Her glowing eyes blinked open. Catching the faint light, like 2 gems, she sat up slowly, her silver hair falling messily across her face. Ryan offered her water from his flask, and she drank carefully, as if not used to such kindness. For a long time, she said nothing, only watched the fire and hugged her knees. Then, at last, in a trembling voice, she spoke. "They've hurt me," she whispered. "Place. Cold. Chains." Ryan froze, his chest tightening. He had suspected something, but hearing it broke through his guarded mind. He asked softly, "Who hurt you, Lyra?" She looked at him, her eyes wet with fear and memory. "Soldiers," she whispered. "Aliens. And humans. Both." Her words echoed in the small cave like thunder. Ryan's fists clenched. He remembered the wars, the experiments, the cruelty that power often brought. It made sense now. She had escaped from somewhere terrible. She had been a prisoner, and both sides wanted her back. Lyra lifted her arm, showing the faint scars again. "Need me?" "For test," she said, voice shaking. "They say I am different." Ryan's gaze hardened. Different. Yes, he had already seen it. The strange glow beneath her skin. "What do you mean?" "Different," he asked carefully. Lyra closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Then she whispered words that sent a chill down his spine. "I grow. Not like you. Not like child." Ryan leaned closer, his soldier's instincts alert. "Explain," he urged, his voice low. Lyra touched her chest lightly, her fingers trembling. "Small now. Weak now," she said, but inside, more. Her body shivered, and for a brief moment, a silver light pulsed under her skin. It spread like veins of fire, glowing faintly before fading. Ryan's eyes widened, his heart racing. This was no ordinary alien child. She carried something powerful, something beyond his understanding. Lyra lowered her hand, exhausted from even that small display. She whispered, "They fear me, but also want me. I can change." Ryan stared at her in silence, his mind racing with possibilities. Change, she had said. Did that mean she could transform, evolve, become something greater? He remembered her words the night before, about always being hunted. Now he understood why she was more than a prisoner. She was a secret, a weapon. Ryan wanted to ask more, but before he could, a sharp noise echoed outside the cave. Lyra flinched, her head snapping toward the sound. Ryan raised a hand, signaling her to stay quiet. He crept to the cave entrance, peering through the ferns and vines that concealed the opening. In the distance, shapes moved, not animals, but machines. Drones hovered low, scanning the forest floor with beams of light, and behind them, tall figures in armored suits marched slowly. Alien soldiers, their weapons glowing faintly in the mist. Ryan cursed under his breath. They had tracked her here. He turned back quickly, whispering, "We need to move. Now." Lyra's face paled, but she nodded, pushing herself to her feet. Her small body wavered, as if she had little strength left. Ryan grabbed his gear, slung it over his shoulder, and offered her his hand. She took it instantly, gripping tightly. Her trust in him was clear, and it was a weight he felt deep inside. They moved through the back of the cave, where Ryan had noticed a narrow tunnel. It was tight and dark, but it led upward, hidden from the soldiers outside. The sound of boots and humming machines grew closer, echoing against the rocks. Ryan pushed forward, helping Lyra climb, his every sense on edge. Halfway through the tunnel, Lyra stumbled, her body trembling again. Ryan caught her, whispering urgently, "Stay with me." But her skin began to glow once more. Faint silver light leaking through, she gasped, clutching her chest, her voice shaking. "Too soon. Too fast," she whispered. "I cannot hold it." Ryan's eyes widened, the glow spreading across her arms and face. He held her tightly, shielding her from hitting the rocks. "What's happening?" he asked sharply. Her voice cracked as she answered, "I change. I grow, but not ready." Her body convulsed, the light flaring before fading again. Ryan's jaw tightened. He understood she was transforming, but too early. The stress of running, the fear, the hunger, it was forcing her into something dangerous. Finally, the glow dimmed, leaving her weak and pale in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, but she clung to him desperately. "Don't leave me," she whispered again, her voice breaking. Ryan pulled her close, whispering back, "I won't." No matter what she was, no matter what secret she carried, he could not abandon her. She was more than just a burden now. She was his responsibility, and maybe, just maybe, the key to something greater than either of them understood. They finally reached the top of the tunnel, emerging into the bright morning light. The forest stretched out before them, endless and wild. Behind them, faint echoes of soldiers still searched the cave. Ryan glanced at Lyra, who leaned against him, her small body trembling with hidden power. He knew now that keeping her safe would not be easy, but as her glowing eyes met his, filled with trust and fear, he felt his resolve harden. He would protect her, no matter the cost, even if it meant standing against the whole galaxy. The morning air was heavy with mist. Ryan pulled Lyra through the tall grass, their steps quick but careful. Every sound seemed louder than it should be. Every crack of a branch made his heart race. Behind them, faint metallic hums echoed, the unmistakable sound of patrol drones. They were closing in, sweeping through the forest with cold precision. Lyra stumbled, her legs weak from exhaustion. Ryan caught her, lifting her easily into his arms. She was light, almost too light, as if her body carried more energy than flesh. Her silver hair brushed against his shoulder as she whispered, "They near her. They smell me." Ryan kept his eyes forward, pushing through vines and roots. He muttered, "Not if I can help it." The trees thinned, revealing the ruins of old stone structures. Walls covered in moss, broken pillars half swallowed by the earth. Ryan darted into the shadows of the ruins, Crouching low, he set Lyra down gently behind a fallen column. Her glowing eyes scanned the surroundings with fear. "They never stop," she whispered. "Always hunt me." Ryan peeked over the stones, his soldier's instincts on full alert. Through the fog, he saw shapes moving, tall alien soldiers in black armor, their helmets glowing faintly. They carried rifles that hummed with energy. Beside them, hovering drones scanned the ground with piercing lights. Ryan's grip tightened on his weapon, his mind racing for options. The soldiers moved methodically, their voices harsh and metallic through their helmets. Ryan could not understand their language fully, but he knew the tone: commands, orders, capture alive. His gut told him they wanted Lyra, and they would kill him without hesitation. He turned to her, whispering, "Stay hidden, no matter what." Her small hands clutched his arm, her voice shaking. "No, alone, please." Ryan forced a small nod. "I'll be right here." The first drone floated closer, its red sensor scanning the ruins. Ryan pressed himself flat against the stone, holding his breath. The hum grew louder, closer. Then, suddenly, the drone stopped, its sensor turning sharply toward their hiding spot. Ryan cursed silently. They were found. The machine's lens glowed brighter, preparing to sound an alarm. Before Ryan could react, Lyra raised her trembling hand. Her eyes flared with silver light, and she whispered in a language he could not understand. The drone froze midair, its lights flickering wildly. Then, with a sharp crackle, it shut down and dropped to the ground, lifeless. Ryan's eyes widened in disbelief. He looked at Lyra, who sagged against the stone, drained by the effort. "What did you just do?" he whispered. She shook her head weakly, whispering, "Command." Inside them, changed their voice. Ryan had no time to process her words. The soldiers had noticed the fallen drone. They shouted to one another, their footsteps pounding closer. Ryan grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her to her feet. "Run," he hissed, and together they sprinted through the ruins. Blasts of energy lit the air behind them as soldiers fired. The beam slammed into the old stone, shattering walls and sending dust into the sky. Ryan ducked and weaved, pulling Lyra through broken arches and collapsing corridors. The sound of pursuit never slowed. They burst out of the ruins into the forest again. The ground sloped downward, toward a river, the sound of rushing water filling the air. Ryan's lungs burned, but he didn't stop. Lyra stumbled beside him, still glowing faintly, her strength fading. He knew they couldn't outrun trained soldiers for long. At the river's edge, Ryan looked quickly around, across the water. The forest stretched thick and endless, but crossing would be risky. The current was fast and strong. The soldiers were already emerging from the ruins, their weapons raised. Ryan had no choice. "Hold on," he told Lyra, scooping her into his arms again. Without hesitation, he leaped into the river. The icy water crashed against them, dragging them downstream. Ryan kicked hard, fighting the current, his grip tight around the fragile alien girl. She clung to him, her face pressed against his chest, her whisper lost in the roar of the river. Energy blasts hissed into the water behind them, sending up bursts of steam. The soldiers fired wildly, but the current carried Ryan and Lyra out of range. Still, the danger was not gone. The river slammed them against rocks, dragged them under, spun them through violent turns. Ryan's muscles screamed with effort, but he refused to let go. Finally, after what felt like forever, he managed to grab a low branch near the shore. He hauled them both onto the muddy bank, gasping for air. Lyra coughed weakly, her glowing eyes dim. Ryan pulled her close, checking to see if she was hurt. She whispered faintly, "They never stop. Never stop." Ryan brushed wet hair from her face, meeting her frightened gaze. "Then we don't stop either," he said firmly. "We keep moving, always one step ahead." In the distance, the soldiers shouted in frustration, their voices echoing across the river. Ryan knew they would not give up. They would track them again, maybe in hours, maybe in minutes. But as he looked at Lyra, weak yet still alive in his arms, he felt his resolve harden. This was no longer just survival. This was a chase, and he would not let them win. The river had carried them far from the ruins. Ryan found a dry cave hidden behind a curtain of vines, and there he set Lyra down. She was pale, her body trembling as if every breath was a struggle. Her glowing eyes flickered weakly, like fading stars. Ryan crouched beside her, his hands steady, but his heart racing. "You need rest," he said softly, pulling his jacket tighter around her small frame. But Lyra shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, too late. Coming soon." Ryan frowned, confused by her words. "What's coming?" Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his, filled with fear, but also something else. Something deeper. "My change," she whispered. "Cannot stop it now, before Ryan could ask." Her body convulsed with sudden force. She gasped, clutching her chest, her skin glowing with silver light. Ryan's instincts screamed to move back, but he stayed close, holding her shoulders. "Stay with me, Lyra," he urged, his voice sharp. "Don't let go." The glow spread across her arms, her neck, her face, turning her skin into a canvas of light. The cave walls lit up as if a star had been born inside. Her small frame shivered violently, her breaths shallow and fast. Ryan could only watch, powerless. As the alien girl changed before his eyes, her silver hair lengthened, flowing like liquid light. Her face sharpened, the soft roundness of a child fading into the striking beauty of someone older. Her body grew taller, her fragile figure filling with strength, her limbs stretching gracefully. Clothes tore at the seams as her form expanded, reshaping itself into something new. Ryan's jaw clenched, his soldier's mind trying to understand. This was no ordinary growth, no simple evolution. This was transformation, a cycle of her kind, something hidden and dangerous. The glow finally began to fade, leaving behind a figure no longer small or childlike. She stood before him, taller now, her eyes brighter, her movements steady, her voice, when she spoke, was clearer, smoother, with no hesitation. "I told you, human," she said softly. "I grow different." Ryan stared, breathless. The tiny alien girl he had rescued was gone. In her place stood a young woman with an aura of power and beauty that stole the breath from his chest. Her silver hair cascaded down her back like molten metal, her glowing eyes sharp and confident. Even her scars seemed to have vanished, healed in the change. He finally found his voice. "Lyra, is this really you?" She nodded slowly, her gaze softening as she looked at him. "Yes, me," she whispered. "But more." Ryan tried to process what this meant. If she could change like this, what else could she do? And what would happen when the soldiers found out? His thoughts were interrupted when Lyra staggered, placing a hand against the cave wall. Though her new form was strong, her body shook with exhaustion. The transformation had drained her, leaving her vulnerable, despite her appearance. Ryan moved closer, steadying her with a hand on her arm. "You need to recover," he said firmly. "This, whatever it is, it took everything out of you." Lyra looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering. "You saved me," she whispered, even when weak. Even now, her words stirred something deep inside Ryan, something he had buried long ago. He had lost comrades, family, people who once relied on him, and now this alien, this girl who had become something greater, was looking at him with trust. He would not fail her, not this time. Outside the cave, a low rumble shook the earth. Ryan froze, listening closely. Engines, heavy and close. He cursed under his breath. The soldiers had brought in larger machines, maybe transports or walkers. Lyra's eyes narrowed, glowing faintly in the darkness. "They know," she whispered. "They feel my change." Ryan grabbed his weapon, checking the charge. "They'll be coming fast," he said. "We need to move again." But Lyra stepped forward, her movement steadier now. "No," she said firmly, her voice stronger. I not run always. Ryan blinked, surprised at her sudden determination. She raised her hand, silver light flickering along her fingers. I have power now. I must use it. Ryan shook his head. Not yet. You're too weak. They'll kill you. Her glowing eyes locked on his, sharp and unyielding. Not if you stand with me, she whispered. The cave trembled again as a booming sound echoed. Through the forest, Ryan knew the enemy was close, their machines heavy and relentless. He looked at Lyra, her silver hair shining faintly in the dim light, her face calm but fierce. She was no longer the tiny girl who had begged him not to leave her. She was something else now, something powerful. But she was still looking at him the same way, with trust and need. Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon, nodding slowly. All right, he said, his voice steady. We face them together. Lyra smiled faintly, a smile that carried both sadness and strength. Together, she whispered. Outside, the forest roared with the sound of approaching soldiers. Inside the cave, a human and a transformed alien girl stood side by side. The fragile bond between them had become something stronger, something that could shake the world. The ground trembled as heavy machines moved through the forest. Ryan and Lyra stood at the mouth of the cave, the morning mist curling around them, like smoke. In the distance, glowing lights cut through the trees, moving closer. The sound of alien engines and marching boots echoed like thunder. The hunters had found them again, and this time, they came in force. Ryan checked his weapon, the familiar weight steady in his hands. Beside him, Lyra's silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her glowing eyes were calm, but beneath that calmness burned a fire. She had changed, transformed into something powerful, but she was still fragile in ways Ryan could see. Yet she refused to hide, refused to run again. They will kill you if they can, Ryan said firmly, his voice low. Lyra shook her head, her eyes fierce. Not today. She stepped forward, raising her hand, silver sparks flickering across her skin. Ryan's chest tightened as he watched her, torn between awe and fear. Whatever power lived inside her, it was beyond his understanding. The first drones appeared through the trees, scanning beams cutting across the mist. Ryan raised his weapon and fired, the energy bolt striking one cleanly. The machine sparked and crashed into the ground. More drones swarmed, their lenses glowing red. Lyra's hand lifted, and with a whispered command in her strange tongue, the machines froze. Their red lights flickered wildly before shutting down one by one, dropping like stones into the mud. Ryan stared, shocked. You can control them. Lyra's voice was calm, though her body trembled slightly. They listen to me if I push. But before Ryan could reply, the ground shook harder from the trees. Alien soldiers emerged, armored figures tall and imposing, weapons glowing with deadly energy. Their leader raised a clawed hand, pointing toward the cave. The command was simple, sharp, and cold. Kill the human. Capture her alive. Ryan's pulse quickened, the words clear enough to understand. He raised his weapon, firing burst after burst, forcing the soldiers to scatter behind trees and rocks. Bolts of energy slammed into the ground around him, showering dirt and sparks into the air. He ducked low, rolling behind a fallen log, shouting, "Stay back, Lyra." But Lyra did not hide. She stepped forward, her body glowing faintly in the mist. She lifted both hands, and the light spread like veins of silver fire across her skin. The alien soldiers hesitated, their rifles raised, but their movements slower. The glow in Lyra's eyes grew brighter, her voice ringing out in a language older than the forest itself. The air hummed with strange energy, machines crackled, and even the soldiers staggered as their weapons flickered. Ryan used the moment, firing precise shots, striking two soldiers before they could recover. The battle turned chaotic, drones falling, soldiers shouting, beams of energy lighting the forest like lightning. But Lyra's strength was not endless. Ryan saw her knees weaken, her breath growing shallow, her glow flickering. She was fighting with everything she had, but the effort was tearing at her. "Lyra," he shouted, pulling her back toward the cave. "You can't hold this forever." She shook her head, whispering fiercely, "I must. If not me, then they take me." Ryan's chest burned with frustration. He hated the truth in her words. These soldiers would never stop, and she was their target. But watching her fight, standing tall beside him, he realized something. This was not just her battle, it was theirs, together, for the first time. He was not fighting for survival alone, he was fighting for her. The alien leader stepped forward, taller than the others, his black armor gleaming with strange markings. His weapon hummed with energy, brighter and stronger than the rest. He pointed it at Ryan, his voice cold, human. "Step aside." "Live." Ryan's eyes narrowed, his grip firm on his weapon. "Not a chance," he growled, his voice steady. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The leader fired, a beam of burning energy cutting through the mist. Ryan dove aside, the blast searing past him and smashing into the cave wall. The shock wave threw him to the ground, but he rolled back onto his knees, firing in return. At the same moment, Lyra cried out, her voice ringing like a song of defiance. The silver glow around her flared, blasting outward in a wave that shook the trees. The soldiers stumbled, their weapons shorting out in sparks. Ryan stared at her, his breath caught in his throat. She stood tall, her silver hair flowing like fire, her glowing eyes blazing with power. She looked nothing like the tiny alien girl he had first found. She was something greater, something fierce and unstoppable. Yet, as she turned to him, he still saw the same trust in her gaze. "Together," she whispered, her voice steady. "We fight together." Ryan nodded. Standing at her side once more, the enemy regrouped, their leader roaring commands, their weapons powering back up. But Ryan no longer felt the fear of being outnumbered, because beside him stood Lyra, not just a girl, not just a fugitive, but something extraordinary, and together, human and alien, would face the storm. The battlefield was alive with smoke and fire. Ryan stood beside Lyra, his chest heaving with every breath. The alien soldiers regrouped in the trees, their weapons glowing brighter, their leader shouting orders with fury. Around them, broken drones sparked and burned, the ground scarred from blasts of energy. It felt like the whole forest was at war. Lyra's silver glow shimmered faintly across her skin, her eyes still blazing. She raised her hands again, and the very air hummed with strange power. But Ryan could see her exhaustion. Every breath shook her body. Every movement seemed heavier than before. She had given too much already, and yet she kept fighting. Ryan clenched his jaw, his soldier's instinct telling him this could not last. The alien leader stepped forward, his weapon raised high. He shouted in a deep, commanding voice, his words echoing like thunder. "Enough games. Surrender her now." "Human." Ryan lifted his own weapon, his voice steady, despite the odds. "Not happening," he growled. "She stays with me." The leader roared and fired, the beam of energy tearing through the ground near Ryan's feet. Ryan dove aside, returning fire, blasting sparks from the leader's armor. The clash grew fiercer, energy bolts cutting the mist. Soldiers pressing forward in waves. Ryan fought with precision, every shot measured, every move desperate but sharp. But it was not enough. They were too many. Lyra's glow suddenly flared brighter, a silver wave blasting outward. The enemy stumbled, their weapons flickering, machines falling dead to the ground. For a moment, the battlefield froze, as if the forest itself held its breath. Ryan turned to her, shocked by the sheer force of her power, but her face told him the truth. This was the last of her strength. Her knees buckled, and Ryan caught her before she fell. Her silver hair spilled across his arms, her glowing eyes dimming. "Don't push yourself," he whispered urgently. "You'll burn out." She shook her head weakly, her voice soft, but clear. "I must. It is my fate." Ryan's chest tightened, anger and fear mixing inside him. "No, you don't get to decide that," he growled. "You're not leaving me." Her eyes softened as she looked at him, her lips trembling with a faint smile. You saved me, gave me hope. But now I must save you. Before Ryan could stop her, she pulled away, standing shakily but tall. The silver glow returned, brighter than before, lighting the smoke-filled air. Her voice rang out, echoing across the battlefield. The soldiers froze, their weapons lowering as if compelled. Even the alien leader staggered back, his helmet lights flickering, Ryan's breath caught in his throat. Watching as Lyra's form shimmered with radiant energy, her hair flowed like liquid silver, her body glowing so bright it hurt to look. She was no longer just Lyra, she was something greater, something beyond human understanding. The air vibrated with her presence, the forest itself bending under her power, and then she spoke, her voice strong and clear. I am grown now, she whispered. I am not yours to take. The alien soldiers dropped their weapons, many collapsing under the weight of her power. The leader roared in defiance, trying to fire again, but his weapon shattered in his hands, sparks flying as if the very universe had rejected him. He fell to his knees, his voice breaking. Impossible. Impossible. Lyra turned to Ryan, her glowing eyes filled with sadness, her voice softened, trembling. I'm grown now, human. I cannot stay. Ryan felt his heart tear open. No, he whispered fiercely, gripping his weapon tighter. You're not leaving, not like this. But deep inside, he knew he could not stop her. This was her path, her destiny, and no chains could hold her anymore. She stepped closer, placing a glowing hand against his chest. Her touch was warm, her eyes shimmering with emotion. You gave me freedom, Ryan. You gave me more than chains, more than fear. You gave me a place in your heart. Ryan's throat tightened, his words breaking. And you gave me something to fight for again. The light around her grew unbearable, shining like a star in the forest. Ryan wanted to hold her, to pull her back, but his arms fell through the glow. She was slipping away, dissolving into pure silver light. Her final words whispered into his ear, soft and eternal. Remember me, always. And then she was gone. The battlefield fell silent, the soldiers retreating in fear, the leader crawling away defeated. The forest itself seemed still, as if mourning her absence. Ryan dropped to his knees, his weapon falling from his grip. The ground around him burned with the memory of her power. But his heart carried something heavier, the memory of her goodbye. He sat there in silence, the smoke clearing slowly, alone, but not broken. He lifted his gaze to the sky, whispering into the empty air, I'll wait, Lyra. No matter how long, I'll wait. The forest wind carried his words away, but in his heart, he knew the bond was not gone. She was out there somewhere, grown, powerful, free, and one day, he believed, she would return.